Hello and welcome to another special edition of the Immigrant Magazine Weekly. It's Oscar season and I'm excited to be chatting with some of the world's most outstanding filmmakers and directors. Actor Stephen Prescod and director Doug Roland's film, Feeling Through, is an Academy Award Nominee live-action short film featuring a deaf and blind actor in the lead role for the first time. It is the story of a profound connection that occurs through a late-night encounter on a New York City street between a deaf and blind man called Artie and Tereek, a teen wandering the streets of New York, desperate for a place to crash. What do you think happened? Before I tell you that, let's do the honors. If you haven't subscribed yet, now will be a good time to click the subscribe button here below and ring the notification bell so that you will be notified when we bring you such amazing content. Of course, hit the like button so that YouTube will share our videos. And not forgetting to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Pam and Anchang, and like us on Facebook at The Immigrant Magazine. And so I really want to welcome director Doug Roland to the show and actor Stephen Prescod, who did an amazing job. I do not even know where to begin, but let's start with Doug. Doug, I don't know, did you write the story as well?
I did, yeah.
Oh my gosh, what's the motivation behind it? It's such a short, impactful story that for me seems to capture much more than just the physical short, what would you say, the shortcomings of the performances of the actors. So tell me, why did you do this film or write it too?
Yeah, well, this is actually one of those films that was very much inspired by a real life encounter that I had. And though the film is fictional, some of the core elements of the story were directly inspired by the real encounter that I had with the first person who's deafblind that I ever met now 10 years ago. Very similar to, as you see in the film, I saw a man standing on a street corner holding a sign that said, "I'm deaf and blind and need help crossing the street." And I ended up waiting with him for over an hour at a bus stop. Just intuitively had figured out to communicate to him by tracing one letter at a time on his palm, like you see in the film. And he wrote back in a notepad, and we ended up having a whole conversation that way. And it was a really impactful moment for me because not only was it the first deafblind person I'd ever met, but there was such an intimacy to the communication with someone that, that I was just meeting, and such an intentionality to each letter of each word that I was spelling out to him. And it was just there were so many things about it that made it a special experience. And I felt like we had really made a really meaningful relationship too during that hour plus we waited for the bus. In real life, the man's name was Artemio. And he was just this really charismatic heart guy who I felt like I'd really made a connection with. So all those things stood out to me and really stuck with me. And I felt like I needed to capture it in the story.
That's just amazing. How were you able, now that I know this is something is a real life story, I was having a hard time understanding your ability or Stephen's ability to communicate with a deaf and blind man. Writing, was it Braille? It wasn't Braille. I was just confused.
Yeah, sure. So just to kind of harken back to my real life experience, that again, that part of it is very much in the film. When I met this man, initially he wrote in a notepad that he needed a bus stop, and I tapped him to let him know I'd take him there. But when we got there, I realized the bus wasn't coming for a while, and I wanted to communicate to him that I'd wait with him. But I didn't know how to communicate with him. And it was really just intuition. I'd never thought to do this before in my life, never had reason to do so. But I just took his palm and started tracing one letter at a time on it to spell out, "I will wait." And he understood it. And now years into this process of getting to know the deafblind community, I made the film alongside the deafblind community and Helen Keller National Center. That's the foremost institution to train people who are deafblind. I realized that that's actually called print on palm, but I didn't know what it was at the time. I just did it intuitively. And in the film, similarly, Tereek kind of just figures it out on the spot.
That's just amazing. I've never thought of someone being deaf and blind all at once. It's amazing the things that we take for granted. And I'm going to come to you, Stephen. How was it playing this role, and why did you take it on?
Well, I'm an upcoming actor just looking for work. and and my manager, he just brought this script to me, and I already thought it was pretty interesting, and it took place in New York. I had no idea I was going to be playing alongside an actor that was deaf and blind. But when I read the script, I automatically related to it in the sense of because I also met a kid who's my character. They both kind of share the similar story. And when I got booked for the role, I just thought I was just really glad that Doug chose me for the part. And I just had no idea that we were creating something so magical as what it became.
Yeah, magical is the word. Actor Robert Tarango, he's actually in real life, I'm asking Doug, is in real life he's deaf and blind, deaf and blind, right?
That is correct. Yeah, he is deafblind.
And he's an actor. Has he been doing a lot of acting? To tell you the truth, I don't know much about him.
Sure. So Robert's someone who, and I would find this out later after we cast him, because just to get a sense of at the time we cast him, he was not an actor. He was actually working in the kitchen at Helen Keller National Center where we were holding auditions. I was working with HKNC to, and particularly from the casting standpoint, this gentleman named Chris Woodfill, who works there, who's also deafblind, was reaching out to his network across the country to see who might be interested, because there weren't any deafblind actors to go to cast from. So he reached out to just people who he knew, who he felt like fit what I was looking for. And Robert was working in the kitchen, and halfway through our first day of casting, someone in the room mentioned he might be good, and he was just pulled out of the kitchen, thrown into this audition room. He didn't even really know, he wasn't explained to what was going on initially. And then the moment he realized he was auditioning for a movie, he was like, started cracking jokes and just had the kind of charisma and heart that felt like it was right for the role. But yeah, I'd find out much later that he always wanted to be an actor. It was something that he really had a strong desire for, but just didn't think that it was possible given the fact that he was deafblind. And sure enough, he got a chance to do it, and he did a great job.
He did an outstanding job. I want him to know that. I mean, the movie made it. It's an Oscar-nominated film, so it's like bravo to that, to the community also. And Stephen, you did an outstanding job. So now that I know that you were actually acting with someone that's in real life deaf and blind, how challenging was that?
Well, I mean, at first, it wasn't as challenging as what I first thought it was going to be when I first stepped into it. But because, I was very thankful that Doug actually brought me to the Helen Keller Center, where that's like where the deafblind community are mostly at. And I had the opportunity to actually meet with Robert, and, we rehearsed, and we were able to build such a trust. And thankful that Doug gave us an accessibility for us to communicate on set, and and find like good trick some really creative ways for us to get the scenes done.
Well done. So Doug, now that I know that it's a real life story and it's really inspired by something that you experienced, but I see that Stephen, who is cast in the film, is an African American, I suppose, right, Stephen? If I can see clearly.
Yes.
Intentional? Is there a message behind that?
Yeah, so I always say this, that like when you're creating something that was inspired by a personal story, you have to kind of know ultimately what the story is that you want to tell through the film, and how much of it pertains to what really happened and how much of that you need to let go. When I started writing this script, the earlier versions were much closer to like exactly what happened, but I realized that the larger story that I wanted to tell was different from that in certain ways. And through just a really intuitive approach to the story, to try to figure out what to serve the story and what was best for the story, this character of Tereek emerged, which felt like it fit much more what I was ultimately trying to do with the story, and something where, but what's really important ultimately to the story as well is that both of these characters have something to offer each other. At first it seems like it's Tereek helping Arty get to a bus stop, but really what we in turn learn is that Arty's providing something for Tereek in support, and letting him know that like things will be okay, and that he understands that Tereek's going through something, and is there to let him know things will be okay. And it was just something that formed organically through sitting with the story and opening it up and playing with it, but ultimately something that I think serves the larger message of what I was hoping to get at with it.
It's very compelling because when we look at the society we live in today, or maybe it's always been that way, how we treat people that are different from us, how we see each other, it really matters and it comes across in the film. So I was curious about the fact that especially Tereek's character played, by an African American, and I was thinking about the perceptions of how we see young Black men in society. I don't know why that hit me. I don't know why that occurred to me. Now I see that it might not have been what you were thinking, but that's what I got also from the film. That Tereek is a young African American guy on the streets of New York at an ungodly hour, meets this deaf and blind someone that needs help, and contrary to what we think of the young Black man being dangerous, which is what, unfortunately, that's what we live in. Did you get a sense, or have you had that kind of feedback, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, obviously, anytime you make a choice, there's a lot of, you have to be very aware of like all of the elements that come along with that choice. So it was something that I was definitely really aware of in all the specifics of the characters on both sides of what they were bringing to the story. And of course, you're working within the context of, how characters are represented or often misrepresented in stories. You're speaking to a trope that is something that we're, hopefully evolving away from, which is often seeing people with Black and brown skin being bad people or doing bad things or perpetrating bad things in stories. And on the same side with our characters disabled and deafblind in this case, in the character of Arty, oftentimes the other context I was working in is that often there's this trope where characters who are disabled are only there to be an inspiration to sighted and hearing characters, and that I was working, in the context of both of those, and that's why ultimately, what I think shines through in this, or the intention is that they're both they're both two humans with this deep capacity to connect with each other ultimately. And then that far outshines whatever obstacles or challenges that they have in their lives. And that also there's a real mutuality, like I mentioned, and that they both have something to offer each other. And, I believe most people come away from this story with a real affinity for both of the characters and feel like they're both very like well-rounded and characters that they have a heartfelt connection to at the end. And that's at least that's the intention.
Well, it's well intended also because in the film, we see Artie, is curious about Tereek's character and worries about him. And, there's that conversation that takes place and he's concerned. And it's so funny. I'm like, he has all the problems. I'm thinking because I can see and I can hear, and I'm thinking someone that's disabled has, got to be sad and everything, but he's a happy guy. No. So Tereek, Stephen, look at me calling you that, Tereek. That's how much you got to me. You did a good job. So Stephen, in the film, your character insists to the bus driver, calls out his name, says, insists that the bus driver call his name. Like, why was that important? I know you're playing a character, but why was that significant? Because it caught my attention.
What specifically for that scene, I remember Doug pulled me aside and Doug actually like specified to me, like, you when you're doing the scene, like you're also talking also for yourself as well, like, dig deep within that place. And it made so much sense to me because, like, when I look back at the movie and just also being on set and playing that role, that I feel like both Robert and I were both representing from a place of feeling like unheard and unseen. So I just felt like to get that, for him to actually acknowledge that was something that I felt like was really, really important for him to like really take the acknowledgement of it, like, acknowledge it. So I think that was like really, really like what was really important for me, for him to actually specify like, okay, like I hear you, you know what I mean? And I see what's going on, kind of thing.
Very powerful. I don't want to take this into Black Lives Matter and all whatnot, but we're dealing with a lot of race issues. Do you feel unseen somewhere sometimes as a Black man? Do you feel misrepresented as a Black man?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, and that's a great question because, it's a beautiful way how I could be seen and the things that's said to me from what people know me as and see through the movie. I get people to write me messages and things like that. But in reality, there are times, like, as I take the train in different places till this day, I don't feel like I'm seen as that kid that people loved in the film Tariq. There is a different energy, into the sense of me just being like, I just feel like it changed as I got as a man now. I'm in this vessel, and sometimes, it might be intimidated for some people, or whatever. But I just plan to try to and change that narrative through the work that I do and do these interviews as well. And just people should just, it's hard for people in general, for everyone to kind of trust, especially men in this world nowadays. You know what I mean? In general. So it's like it could be a tough thing to put into words fully. That's a whole total longer conversation. But there is a different way I felt viewed, in the sense of the energy that I feel from when people do write me. And people that see me in the train would never know that I was someone who actually played this role, Tariq, with so much compassion and kindness.
Just amazing. So, what is the message to audiences for you?
When it comes to seeing the film,
Yes, after someone, what's the takeaway that you want people to get from this film?
just you know, I, when it comes to the arts, like I always have a hard time actually telling someone, what I want them to take away from it, because I heard David Banner said that Erica Badu said one time, like, if Tupac explained his songs, some people would feel like, oh, I thought I actually knew Tupac.
That's
So, in a sense, it's just like, yeah, just when you put the art there, it comes from wherever it came from your pain and your purpose, and allow it to just be universal and heal those who need to be healed by it in the way that they see it.
That's amazing. Doug, it's so funny he said that because I took away what I took away, which I've shared with you. Now, what is, if there's a message, what was the intentionality? What's the message here?
Sure, and as Steven said it so well, and one of the things I do really like about this film is that a lot of people take away a lot of different specific elements, and think there's certain elements that resonate more than others. But something that I've heard a lot, and something that certainly is part of the intention, is that that ultimately the thing that's most resonant about this story is the power of human connection, despite our respective differences or challenges. And I think that's something that has not only been a great takeaway for a lot of people, but a really needed one during particularly this past year. That's been a really challenging and trying time for pretty much everyone. We've gotten, I can't even tell you how many messages and comments and direct messages from people saying that they were at a real low point when they saw this film, and that it was something that really helped turn things around for them. And that's, when you hear stuff like that back, that's kind of like the highest praise in a lot of ways. So we're happy that it's something that not only is entertaining and maybe moving to people right now, but also something that's providing something, almost providing hope in a way for some people who really need that right now.
Absolutely. It did that for me because, like I said, I'm looking at the deaf and blind man and he's just calm, and thinking about all these myriad things that bother me and that we wrestle with every day. And yes, someone, and you know what is funny? We see this all the time. Let's just suppose you're downtown Los Angeles and you're on the crosswalk. You always come across someone that's blind and they just have this wand that they use and try to navigate and just going about their business. And here we are worrying about stuff that is not even that important. No, it's a really compelling film. I'm just curious about how you felt about when the film was nominated in the shorts category for the Oscars. Did you expect that? You knew you had this great film, but what was your thought?
I mean, we were definitely hopeful. You never know, you never know what's going to happen. So, we were so excited and honored, very relieved also, because it was just like the nerves leading up to it were growing for sure. But yeah, just honored to be here. And again, it not only is it a great honor to have the film acknowledged in that way, but the beauty of this is that this film has been made alongside the deafblind community for the entirety of it. My co-nominee is Sue Rosensky, who's the CEO of Helen Keller Services, who's dedicated her 40+ year career to working for the deafblind community. And this was her first film experience. She's now a nominee, which is pretty cool. But what that means is really it also provides a larger platform for a lot of the discussions and awareness that we've used this film to build. So I'm just happy that there's more people like yourself and like me prior to meeting Artemio years ago that previously didn't know anything about the deafblind community before seeing this film, that now are have a more personal connection to a community as a result. And that's something like getting nominated for an Oscar really helps create a larger platform of awareness for that as well. So we're really thrilled about that too.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, your first time, you say you're up and coming actor, right? And
Yes.
a film, a short, is an Oscar contender. I mean, that's mind blowing. And then Robert, it's his first time acting, right? And now you're telling me someone else is the first time. I just even can't wrap my brain around it. What does this mean to you, Stephen?
Well, it means that for me, when I actually just everything how it's unfolding and seeing the responses that this film has been giving, just it puts me in the perspective that okay, I assume that I am on on the right path, and I chose like the right career, the correct right career to navigate me in this world, and just to always just do my best in anything that I'm in. There's nothing that's too small or too short. You know what I mean? Like it definitely everything does matter.
Everything certainly does matter. It really is a validation of what your path. You said it rightly. Doug, so how can inquiring minds see this film?
Yeah, the best thing to do is we've purposely made it widely available along with our companion documentary called Connecting the Dots, which people honestly love just as much as the film. We were rolling cameras throughout pre-production. We had cameras in the room the first time I met Robert. Not only does it follow the process of me like aligning with and working with Helen Keller National Center and working with Robert and Stephen, but it also follows the almost year-long journey to track down this man Artemio, who I had met in real life many years prior. So you can find both of those films at feelingthrough.com. And yeah, if you love Feeling Through, we really encourage people to watch the documentary too, which is short as well. It's like 24 minutes. People have really loved that almost just as much as Feeling Through. But you can watch both films there at feelingthrough.com.
Why that title just struck me now. Feeling through.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling through. I like that title. Why the title Feeling Through?
I thought about it for a while. Titles are like so important, and I find maybe one of the hardest parts about writing. But to me, it was a kind of a double meaning term that spoke very much to feeling your way through something. The deafblind community is very tactile community. A large portion of the deafblind community relies on tactile ASL, which is ASL signed into the hand. There's a lot of use of touch in that community. So the more literal meaning of feeling your way through a space. But then the more metaphorical one that's a little bit more emblematic, particularly of Tereek's character, which is, it's like a coming of age moment for him to let down his guard and learn how to lead more from his heart and feel his way through something, of really allow himself to connect with another person. That was kind of the dual meanings there that were in the title.
Well, it's awesome. Thank you so much. Had a great time chatting with you. Wishing you all the best. And Roland, I'm sure there's so much more. I think out of this film, you're gonna get so many more opportunities. And I just love the fact. I want to thank you, Doug, for giving some humanity to both the characters, to the deaf and blind community, to the African American community, and to anybody that's going through some challenges. Because this film really, when I read the summaries, deaf and blind, it was like a downer for me. But then when I watched the film, I was so inspired. And so I know it's a really inspirational film. And I hope that audiences, that everyone is going to watch it. And I'm looking forward to watching that documentary as well, so I can really see the journey. So thank you so much, gentlemen. And hopefully everything goes well. Regardless, it's a winner. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and have a good day.
Thanks so much.
We've come to the end of our show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if so, please share your opinions with me in the comment section or send me an email at publisher@immigrantmagazine.com. I hope that you subscribe and invite others to subscribe to this new and revolutionary channel, TIMTV, Voice of Immigrants in America. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram @Anchang, and like us on Facebook, The Immigrant Magazine. See you next time on Immigrant Magazine Weekly.